My name is Zarina, and I am a graphic designer who specializes in logo design and branding design. And in honor of Donald Trump no longer being our president, I thought it would be great to just do a little reaction video to different politician logos. Political logos are really interesting because they've mostly all use the same kind of color palette, the red, white, and blue. They don't really take a lot of risks generally, which makes sense. There's a lot on the line, you know, if you're running for president or senator. Sometimes the branding can be kind of stale, but sometimes it can be really interesting. So without further ado, let's jump on into it. This first logo I'm looking at is for Bernie Sanders. I love Bernie. I'm a big Bernie girl. That sounded weird. The color palette isn't super original. I have a feeling I'm gonna be saying that a lot. There's a lot of little things I would tweak. I would probably make the star a little bit smaller. I'd adjust the space between the between that R and the N. I like that it's overlapping, but I think that white space is just a little too tight. Because if you scale this down at all, it's just gonna disappear. So I'd add a little more space there. And I like this wave, but I kind of wish that the designer had crafted the type a little bit more so that it kind of felt almost cradled by this wave. Because right now the bee's sort of floating in the air. You know, the wave doesn't really seem to make sense. It does just kind of feel like they took a slab serif typeface and they put a wave underneath it, and I would have liked to feel a little more craft behind it. But by no means is this a bad logo. All right, moving on, we have AOC, another favorite of mine. Just as a person and a politician, I love this. This is fantastic. I don't know who did this design. I probably should. But it's so cool. In terms of political logos, it's so unique. And that upward angle, it just has this feeling of progress and energy, and it just feels like her. I love the speech bubble. I love the punctuation, and the color palette is so unique. When politicians never use colors like this, and it's such a risk, but it still feels right. It feels like it has a lot of energy behind it. I was actually listening to an episode of Overtime, which, if you know, it's the podcast that Dribble does by Meg Lewis. And she was talking about this design, and apparently this risk that she took, this design risk, because it paid off so well, a lot of other politicians are actually starting to use this color palette. I haven't really seen it, but that's what Meg was saying. And so I think that's really interesting how her taking this risk and having it pay off has kind of inspired other people. Although I guess they're not really taking a risk because they're just kind of copying her. They're using like the same blue or the same purple and yellow design. I think that's really interesting. So yeah, this is Andrew Yang's logo. To be honest, I'm not a fan of this one. I think the wave is supposed to be kind of like a flag, or, you know, kind of be reminiscent of a flag, but it just feels a bit awkward. I don't really think this typeface is meant to be italicized. So I'm not really sure what he was going for. Maybe when they were italicizing it, they were thinking like, oh, it's kind of like forward progress, like movement, but I just don't think it works with this font. I'm not a fan of this one, unfortunately. Woo! It's him. Yeah, I like this. It's really simple. It's very safe, but it's decent. And what was that? I understand wanting to be safe in this sort of context. You know, it's tricky to take risks when you're running for president. I get that. 'Cause if you're running for president, your branding needs to feel, you know, really patriotic, I think. So this makes sense. You know, it's modern, it's bold, it's a great font. It feels really approachable and friendly, but it's still kind of bold and strong. I like the E as the flag. I like how it works in this smaller sort of lockup. I like that the designer came up with an alternate design that could be used as like a sticker or a stamp. The space underneath the J is a little weird, but I can forgive that. This branding is a little confusing to me. It just looks so cold. Like, it's not technically bad by any means. Like, it's a nice font. The spacing between the letters feels very professional. It's not even really like a bad color palette, but it just doesn't really make sense to me. It just feels so bland. Like, if you're gonna take a color risk and you're gonna stray away from the red and blue, Why do this? You know what it looks like to me? It looks like a wrapper for like a really nice mint dark chocolate candy bar. That's what this looks like to me. So not really a huge fan of this one. I would really want to know what kind of strategy the designer was going for. I'd actually be really interested to hear more about that. It's really hard to critique this because I get stressed out just looking at this. It's hard to be objective, to be honest. The colors feel a bit bleak to me. I think like the red and blue are just so dark, and there's pretty much no contrast between them. They're both like the exact same value. One isn't lighter or darker than the other, so they kind of almost like vibrate next to each other. It's hard to see that clear differential of when one color ends and the other color begins. But there's also and it's also a bit muted. Like I feel like this palette, this really deep red and blue, you know, and maybe this is me being biased, but it just feels a bit scary to me. Like it feels a bit dark and not very uplifting. I don't mind the primary typeface, to be totally honest. Like I don't think it's bad. I wonder how the designer who made this font feels about it being used for Trump. Ooh. I'm not gonna lie, the icon is actually really nice. It's very similar to what Biden did. The typography underneath makes zero sense to me. Like the spacing between the letters is just so strange. It's like almost lined up, but not quite. I don't know what I would have done, because I think if you lined each letter up exactly, like the P under the T, the E under the R, I think that would have looked weird too. So I'm not sure what I would have done. Maybe I would have added an ampersand in front of Pence or something, just so that they didn't have the exact same amount of letters. So yeah, not terrible, not great, but not a fan of the politician, obviously. Okay, so another really nice brand and logo design for the Democrats here. We got Pete Buttigieg. I actually remember seeing this when he announced that he would be running for president. It was reviewed on Brand New, and I thought it looked really cool. I love all the different little assets that the designer made, how they spell out his name, or they don't spell out his name, but they kind of write it phonetically because it's so hard to pronounce. I love how it feels a little bit sporty, and I kind of like how it doesn't feel so far off from the red, white, and blue color palette, because you do have the blue, you have kind of this like deep, warm, reddish orange color, but they did take it kind of a step further and they added in the yellow, they added in like this navy blue color, this like really light blue that's almost an off-white. It was really cool to see something like this in the presidential race. I feel like usually the approaches are a little bit safer. So overall, I really like this logo and brand design. Oh, okay, this is pretty rough. So the R feels very choppy to me. Let me see if I can zoom in. The R, you know, if you're doing something that's got like these curves to it, you really have to make sure those curves are smooth. It takes a really long time. This logo does not feel like it had a lot of time spent on it. It feels kind of wonky. Like if you look at the bottom here, you see how that edge, I mean, it's pixelated here, but the edge kind of like is flattened out, and it's so pointy. Every point is so pointy, and it's just like, it doesn't feel super professional. Obama. I don't know why I said it like that. So this is his 2008 version. This logo's nice, but it definitely feels like it was made in 2008. So I'm gonna focus on the 2012 one because I think it's a little stronger. Yeah, this is way better. The flat design I feel like works better for this logo. I like the typeface. I think this was Aaron Draplin, wasn't it? Yeah, so I mean, he's great, so that makes sense. It's a really clever little stamp. You kind of have the O, but then it's like the land, and it's the sun, and it's the flag. It works really nicely. It's kind of timeless. I feel like it's a really iconic logo. I feel like of the political logos we've looked at so far, that one is just like so recognizable to people. Hillary. Yeah, this is fine. I mean, I like the idea of it a lot. I don't love the execution. I wish the execution was a little more creative. you know, it's just so flat and I wish it had a little more personality to it. I like the idea of using the H. I feel like it's really ownable because she kind of is known more by her first name than a lot of other politicians. And I think it works well with her tagline. It's really ownable again because she's, you know, the closest any woman has gotten to being president. So yeah, kind of neutral on this one. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of those logos, I'm going to just list out the order. If I'm going to rank them from best to worst, and let me know if you agree. This is just my personal opinion. And again, I cannot stress this enough. I am not basing this on who I think is the best politician. I'm just basing it on design. So I would definitely put AOC as number one. I think this is fantastic. Then after that, I would say Obama. Then after that, I would say Pete. Biden would be the next one. Then, ooh, this is hard. Then Hillary. Then Bernie. Then I guess Warren. I don't really know where to place Elizabeth Warren's logo because it's not bad. It's just bland. I don't know where to put it. So I'm gonna say Warren after that, and then I'd say Trump, and then I'd say Andrew Yang, and then I'd say Mitt Romney at the very bottom. I think that one is definitely the weakest of the bunch. All right, so that is the video. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you think I'm totally off and you hate my ranking. If you have made it this far, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.